why it's really important to have a plan and understand what your goals are.
In fact, my camel out there is suffering right now with a broken back.
So I actually found Pepe when it was only a couple of hours old, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny meme.
Oh my god.
Yo! Who is this Degen?
The old man is swing trading over years at a time. And it's like, that's where the real money is made.
The answer is a permanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about impermanent loss.
If you're aware, if you're disciplined, you can hone that into further financial growth.
Financial freedom, to where you can actually live life and not have to be constantly living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, more or less, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, crypto degenerates, ducks and squirrels, welcome to this here Degen Roundtable Book Club episode number 34, where we're going to be covering The Toyota Way by Jeffrey Liker. But before we do that, Mrs. Producer, why don't you go ahead and roll our commercial that Zenith made for us?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Pulse Chain Tour Masters Golf Tournament 2024. Zenith is making his approach to the green on this sudden death playoff between himself and Reginald Gerald III, who already completed his putt for birdie. Zenith needs to make this putt right here in order for his dreams of winning that jacket to stay alive. Let's see what he does. Oh! Oh, he flubbed it! He missed! He whiffed! He's a loser! Loser! I repeat, RG3 wins! RG3 wins! Don't make mistakes like that guy. Get ready early for Pulse Chain Tour Las Vegas 2025, including the Pulse Masters Golf Tournament from March 6th through the 9th. Sign up early and use the code DGEN at checkout before September 1st to get 36.9% off all of your tickets. Don't miss out on all the fun from the star-studded conferences, golf tournament, and nightly events in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada with all of your friends and favorite Pulse and Hex creators. We cannot wait to see you in Vegas, so until then, DGen responsibly.
Goddamn right, Degen responsibly.
Loser. Straight
I fucking
loser.
love it.
He's a loser. Loser, I
Good
said.
commercial, bro. I love it.
I will never.
All right, ladies and gentlemen,
that part.
it's the whole fucking commercial is a great thing. But welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this 34th episode of Degen Roundtable, where we're going to be the book club specifically, where we're covering The Toyota Way by Jeffrey Liker, as I said earlier. Joining me tonight, I have a fantastic panel full of beautiful, wonderful guests. I've got Zenith, I've got Farmer J, I've got Mrs. McGettit. Ladies and gentlemen, what is new and exciting with you? Starting with my fantastic co-host, Mr. Zenith. How you doing, broski?
I'm doing pretty well. It's good to see you again in less than 24 hours of when we did our last streams together. Yeah, Will and I did an impromptu reading of all of the Richard Hart legal case documents, starting off with the Richard Hart response to the SEC's response to Richard Hart, and then the Richard Hart response to the response to the response. So we did the Inception meme, and we went 5 dreams deep, and at the end of it, it definitely felt like a fever dream, but it was a good time, and I think we provided a lot of good value. So if you're interested in reading the documents for yourself, but you don't want to actually read it and you want to use your ear holes, go fire up our streams. Literally, the first part of the streams is us just cold cock reading it top to bottom, no commentary, no nothing, just trying to give you just the sauce. So if you want the documents, they're now out there in what we're going to call audiobook form, quote unquote. So that's what we got going on. Other than that, I'm excited to talk about the book tonight because I even brought some of my good old engineering textbooks for my street cred. So yeah, this book it's kind of a second look through for me, which I'm excited about because I've tried using a good amount of these principles in my actual professional life. So I'm excited to talk about it with you guys. That is what I got going on though. Farmer, how you been, brother?
I've been pretty good, man. Just I was catching up on your guys' streams this week. But other than that, not much I got to say about this book. Just we'll just roll with it as we go.
Excellent. All righty. Fantastic. And oh shoot. Damn. I had a question and I forgot what it was, but we'll just roll right on to introducing our third guest, Mrs. McGettit. How's it going? What's new and exciting with you, Mrs. Producer?
Hello.
Ideal team player in the making. I like that headline. That's your little subheader. That's very good. But yeah, how are you doing? What's up?
I am doing all right. My young child here is continually bringing me bottles of sparkling ice to drink just a tiny bit at a time so that it's a little bit lower because he's fascinated by looking at it when it changes. And so he just brought me another one.
He's a good kid.
Oh, he's so cute. Other than that, Mr. McGettit is not home from work yet. They finally allowed overtime again, so they are working him to the bone. So he's probably going to come home at some point during the stream. So just wanted to mention, apologize in advance for the background noise. I've got to deal with the little one on my own here until he gets back, and then whenever he comes in, depending on when that happens, it might happen when I'm unmuted. I will try to be muted and stuff, but just kind of a heads up.
That sounds good.
Other than that, life's going good over here. This book, I didn't get to actually read it, but I watched a bunch of the summary videos, and we've got the summary up in the DRT book club chat. If you're in there, if you're not, get in there. What are you waiting for? So yeah, I'm mostly here to listen to you guys. I'll weigh in when I can, and if you have questions that catch my interest, I'll obviously talk about those. But in that, I'm excited to see what everybody's got to say.
I know there was the newest version, right? It's like 10 hours long. I listened to the original version.
Yeah, that's what I listened to. It's the one that was like 2 hours.
It was also free.
Yes.
Yeah, and also free.
Mm-hmm. I do like it. They had the second edition, and I was listening to a podcast earlier from the author where he was talking about how he added a whole bunch of stuff to it in the revised edition and like his thoughts and feelings and all that. So we might dip into that a little bit later. But before we get to thoughts on the actual book and the summary of the book itself, I'm going to go ahead and do everyone's favorite. We're going to do a round of chat motherfucking shout out to everybody. So go ahead and get your glasses of sparkling water ready and your ear holes open and your fingers away typing on those keyboards. Because if you guys are chatting to us on the show, then we're going to go ahead and read them off, starting with our very dearest Kenturian 54X, coming in a whopping, let's see, that's 2 hours and 20 minutes before the stream goes live. He says, "What's up, Degens? I'll be on replay, gang. Got some flight training to do tonight." Sounds good, Mr. Kenturian 54X. I'm stoked you'll be catching us on the replay. It's going to be a good time. And by the way, I hear flying is fucking awesome, like from the pilot seat. I don't know jack shit about flying, but from what I understand, since you're up there doing the farming and stuff, that'd be super cool if you do like crop dusting activities or whatever the heck it is that goes on over there. But that's kick-ass, bro. Glad to hear it. Love to see that you're out there doing stuff. Next up, we've got Paul Sachs saying, "Nice Kenturian. Good to see you boys." Good to see you too, Paul. Welcome to the show. It's going to be a good one. After that, we've got Tam saying, "What's up, fam? What is up?" Right back to you, Tam. Glad to see you're in here. And then finally, we have my excellent, beautiful brother, Samuel Stevenson, reminding everyone to smash the like button. Go ahead and give it a big like. I got the idea, actually, of doing this book for book club from my brother, Sam, who read it a while back before we started doing book club, and he was just ranting and raving about all the excellent stuff that is the Toyota way and the fast processes and ideas that come from it. So I'm super stoked to get into it. So real quick, everybody, I'm going to do a super duper smooth summary of the book, and then I'll go ahead and ask you guys if there was a particular part of the book that stood out to you or something that made you throw up a little bit in your mouth or something like that. So from ChatGPT, here comes the summary of the Toyota Way. The Toyota Way is a management philosophy and set of principles that guide the Toyota Motor Corporation. It's based on two main pillars: continuous improvement and respect for people. The Toyota Way is often summarized with the following key principles. 1, continuous improvement, which is the Kaizen. First, under the Kaizen, you have challenge, which is a long-term vision, being willing to meet challenges with the courage and creativity needed to realize that vision. 2, you got Kaizen, and this is a sub description of the continuous improvement. You have the actual Kaizen itself, which is continuously improving operations and processes by constantly seeking to eliminate waste. And you can extrapolate this concept to anything in life. It doesn't necessarily have to do with business, but that's where they came up with this philosophy and improvement and things. And then 3, Genshi Kenbutsu, which is going to the source to find the facts and make correct decisions. This is often summarized as go and see. So this is like the act of when leaders go out into the field and they're interacting with the teams and dealing with the people like at the source. It's like when the lieutenant like hops in the foxhole and he's talking to the corporal in the private about like, hey, what are your guys intersecting fields of fire? How are you going to be like, like what's your overwatch? What's your this, that, and the other thing for all my military folks out there? It's basically when the top people, they come and they interact with the people that are actually doing this stuff, the movers and the pushers. So that's Genshi Kenbutsu. And man, there's a lot of Japanese phrases in this book, which I also took the time to to go and interpret for the folks as well in that Telegram. All right, so second part, or one of the other key principles of the Toyota Way, is respect for people. So respect is obviously respecting others, making every effort to understand each other, take responsibility, and do your best to build mutual trust. And then the other half of that is teamwork, which is to stimulate personal and professional growth, share the opportunities of development, and maximize individual and team performance. Next up, we've got the elimination of waste, which they call MUDA in the book, MUDA. And that basically focuses on removing wasteful practices in production and business processes. And this includes waste in inventory, overproduction, waiting time, transportation, processing, motion, and defective products. Up next, number 4, we've got decision making, which is Nimawashi. Make decisions slowly by consensus, thoroughly considering all options, but implement them rapidly once the decision is actually made. So this is basically the idea of gathering all of the relevant information, making a very deliberate decision, and then just committing to it full force and, adjusting as necessary. And then the fifth part of the philosophy is long-term thinking, which is making decisions based on long-term benefits, even if the short-term financial goals might be affected. So overall, the Toyota Way, and this isn't really, I should have clarified, this isn't a book summarization. This is a summarization of the principle. I'll go through a quick list of the chapters here in a second, but the Toyota Way has been widely adopted beyond the automotive industry, influencing various sectors due to its effectiveness in fostering efficiency, quality, and employee management. So my understanding is that people love working for Toyota, and it's a great place, and they're constantly like, it's challenging, it's rewarding, it's got good leadership. They're constantly like evolving slowly as the future goes on. They're not like shooting to make like crazy profits one year and then super downfall in the next and do other stuff. They're focused on constant growth and innovation, and they're very good at that. So now I'm going to go through a quick summarization of the book itself. So in the introduction, they introduce the foundational principles of the Toyota Way, focusing on how the company's culture and practices have made it a global leader in efficiency and quality. Then chapter 2 talks about the Toyota Way in action, providing real-world examples of how the Toyota applies its principles in manufacturing and business operations, blah, 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 and how they basically do all the stuff. Then chapter 2 talks about the 14 principles of the Toyota Way, right? And we'll get into that a little bit deeper later on. I'm just going to list them for now, and I'm not going to really bother describing them. But principle number 1 is base your management decisions on long-term philosophy. Principle 2 is create continuous process flow to bring problems to the surface. Principle 3, use the pull systems to avoid overproduction. Principle 4 is level out the workload, which is the hijunka. That's another Japanese word that we'll go through a little bit. Principle 5 is build a culture of stopping to fix problems. Principle 6 is standardizing tasks, or standardized tasks are the foundation for continuous improvement. Principle 7 is using visual control so that no problems are hidden. Principle 8 is use only reliable, thoroughly tested technology. Principle 9 is grow leaders who live the philosophy. Principle 10 is develop exceptional people and teams. Principle 11, respect your extended network of partners and suppliers. Principle 12 is go and see for yourself, i.e. the Genshi Genbutsu. Principle 13 is make decisions slowly by consensus, thoroughly considering all options. And principle 14 is become a learning organization through relentless reflection and continuous improvement. The conclusion of the Toyota Way is it, let's see. Oh, the conclusion is basically just, that's what the book is about. So, fellow panelists, do you guys have something in particular, any one of those 14 principles or any part of the book or any part of the story that might have stuck out to you as both like a crazy thing or just like an overall sentiment of the, like not even of the book, just of the Toyota Way as a series of principles and anything? Was there anything that stuck out to you while going through this content that we're going to talk about tonight? Something that something sticks out to you, I'll go ahead and take a note on it and we can cover it later after we do some questions and things. I'll start with my co-host Zenith. What are your thoughts, broski?
This was a bit of a trip down memory lane, as I stated in the past, but it was fun to go revisit all the principles. And then one of the things that stuck out with me recently, since last time I reviewed this material, was when they talk about building teams. They talk about the different ways that you can have leaders on teams and the different pros and cons to each of them. And then it had me chuckling because it was perfectly describing kind of the relationship that the military uses for the rank structure, which is that You can have junior officers who are young, energetic types on the ground level with the guys that are in charge technically. They're going to be able to organize the team and direct efforts, but they're not going to be technical experts, so you can't rely on them for that. On the contrary, you can have longtime technicians in the field, aka your senior enlisted, who are your chiefs and your master sergeants and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then you need that real salty gunny he might not be the greatest leader in the world, although by that point I bet you he is a pretty damn good one for being in so long. But they're technical experts and they're able to give actual technical advice to the people that need it. And then finally, there's kind of like the third type, which is the senior officer, which is that someone who has been around long enough and been in the positions long enough to actually have the technical expertise and the decent leadership expertise. But one of the things that they might suffer from is the idea that they've been so disconnected from the field that their feedback might be a little disjointed, or it's not close enough to the people actually doing the work that it might not be hitting exactly as it should, or their critiques might be a little heartless or emotionless, so to speak.
There was a good part in the book where they were talking about the heartlessness and the emotionlessness. Oh shoot, I forgot the word for it, but it was basically like a thing that they do in Japanese culture where when you present your work to a higher up person, they're supposed to find a flaw with it. And then they have to tell you that flaw, and then you're supposed to feel sad, and then you're supposed to like use that feeling sad to fix the flaw, and then like describe how you're not going to do it again or something like that. And it's not like to punish or to shame. It's the whole purpose of it is to give you the opportunity to overcome a challenge that they have the expertise in picking out. So it's not like, hey, you idiot, you shouldn't have fucked this part up. It's more of like oh, hey, I've seen some stuff. I noticed this is your flaw. You need to feel bad now, and you need to not do it again, so that way you can become better. Capiche? And then we'll all win as a result of that. That was a part of the book that I quite like that you just remind me of, Zenith. So thank you.
On the surface, that sounds like a very Japanese concept, though.
Yeah.
Which is that you show respect to your elder by presenting them your thing, and their sign of respect is by telling you what's wrong with your thing. But at the end of the day, it's all supposed to improve people so that we don't keep making the same mistakes.
Yeah. Excellent. I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to Farmer Jay. Was there anything that stuck out to you in the book, or anything in the description, or something that me and Zenith have spoken about that made that like flicked a switch or something in your mind as you were reading or listening?
Just one thing that kind of stuck with me is just how they go about putting leadership in charge, how they like to hire from within, like somebody that understands the culture and what they're all about, instead of trying to bring somebody in. And they change the whole culture of what the company actually is, what has worked for so long. Instead of trying to change that, they actually want to put somebody in there who understands their culture and how their system goes.
Yeah, I like that. In the military world, we would, like, if they were an officer and they used to be enlisted, we'd call them Mustangs. But yeah, that's something that I super appreciated about the Toyota way.
Like you see a lot of these companies nowadays, what they've done, like they bring in new CEOs and they completely change the culture of the company. Like recently with Harley Davidson, like understand who buys your bikes.
Yeah. Yep. It's like we need to know who our target audience is, and then we also need to know like who our employees are and who the people are, and like who knows how to give the like all our sales prospects and things, like the stuff that they're actually looking for here. So that's excellent. I love it. Mrs. Baguette, I know you said you had not read the book, but you did listen to some of the YouTube videos and things. Was there anything in there that stuck out to you, or anything that kind of flicked a switch, or maybe caught your attention or something?
Yeah, one of the things that I kind of picked up that I really like the idea of is that they rarely fire people. Instead, they just move them around and like shift their positions. And I think that's really a great idea that could be implemented in a lot of different places to create, better work environments.
That is an important one. Hang on, I am writing this down real quick. Zenith, can you remind me what the TLDR is of your point, because I didn't get a chance to write it.
Of my point? Oh, it was talking about building teams and the kind of leaders that you could have and the pros and cons of each of them. Because they specifically, I just thought it was funny because I can see the military aspect to it, but the thing they specifically called out was like the young guns, the old guys, and the old officers that are detached.
Yep.
Like,
one of the one of the interesting things I got to thinking about, like when I was reflecting on the difference between like the junior officers and the senior enlisted, is like the basic difference is like the level of ownership and responsibility. And like you were saying earlier, like the senior enlisted, like the chiefs and the technical sergeants and the master sergeants and the gunnery sergeants and the staff sergeants and all that, like they have a lot more like on the ground, like surface level knowledge. They're just like the super duper technicians. And the officers are the more the guys who like, they're the ones that make the decisions and where the money goes and like hold the accountability for all the decisions and stuff like that. Like they're the kind of like the guy that's steering the ship, but they don't necessarily know like how the engine works. Something like that's the way that I think about it.
By the way, before we get too far away from it, when you mentioned the whole Mustang thing, I did have a small little excerpt. It's a cool bit of like military lore. I had a chance to see a few promotions of warrant officers to officers, and there's something that they read for whenever that happens. So I'm going to go through that real quick if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
So as part of the promotion ceremony, they read this passage. It says, "A Mustang is characterized by former enlisted service prior to transitioning to officer rank. As a slang term, there's no official U.S. government definition or set of criteria to determine which officers can be properly called a Mustang, as the term varies in usage and criteria from service to service. By the end of World War II, it was understood across the armed forces that a Mustang was an officer with service in the enlisted ranks before commissioning. It refers to a Mustang horse, a feral animal, and therefore not a thoroughbred. A Mustang, after being captured, can be tamed and saddle broken, but it always has a bit of a wild streak and can periodically revert to its old ways unexpectedly, and therefore the owner needs to keep an eye on it at all times. However, since a Mustang was formerly a feral and free animal, it may very well be smarter, more capable, and have a better survival instinct than thoroughbreds."
I fucking love that, dude. That's great.
It's awesome. For the context at home, there is always the bit of poking fun at each other, which is that the officers or the enlisted call the officers the paper pushers that keep their hands soft for their boyfriends, and the enlisted people are the ones that actually do the real work but not be the brightest. So this is a bit of a homage to that, and I love it personally. It's hilarious.
Yep, it is great. For the folks at home that don't know, just a little bit more inside baseball for you guys here. There's 3 types of officers, right? And I was enlisted, so I don't know what it's like on the other side of the aisle. My father was a Coast Guardsman officer, so
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, like I'm sure that it's very similar, but like as far as living the experience, I don't have that. But there's 3 types of officers, right? And we've described the enlisted, and then amongst the Mustang class, which is like they were prior enlisted, and then the other 2 types are the types that start off their career as an officer. In which case, you've got the guys that go to college, like to some sort of they get their commission at some university somewhere, and then they go to the officer candidate school, and then you've got the academy guys, the ring knockers, which is like what Zenith is over there, if I'm not mistaken, right? You went to the academy, didn't you?
I did. I say the ring knockers thing, but I have a dumb story because it's like this weird thing where it's like not cool to actually like wear your ring, especially around all the other officers and stuff, because everyone's like, we all have one. Like, do you think you're special or something?
Yeah.
And then I remember
you think
I
you're
went
better
to,
than us, huh?
No, not that. I remember I went to the Christmas party for the first unit I was at, and it was like a little more like business casual kind of thing, and I wore my ring to it, and then my engineering officer, my boss, he was like, "What the fuck is that, you weirdo?" And this is in front of like all the engineers as well, so like all the enlisted guys, and then everyone was just giving me shit for the rest of the night about it. And I was like, oh my god.
Yep. That's a good calibration moment. But anyways, guys, let's bring it back onto track on what we're talking about here. I'm actually going to do a quick round of so Paul had some good stuff to say. Mrs. Producer, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the first of Paul Sack's 3 comments, and then we'll go through them one by one. For those that have been in manufacturing production facility, this key point is huge. And that's when Zenith was talking about the building teams and leaders. Yes. Okay. So Mrs. Producer, if you could pull up his second spot there again. So Toyota implements a system of job rotation for production team members, but the frequency varies. Workers typically rotate between different positions throughout a single shift. Usually, every part of what keeps people happy and on the company for a long time, usually every part of what keeps people happy and on the company for a long time. trying to keep them human and not feel like a drone. So this is very important what he's talking about, like switching things up. If a person's doing the same thing all the fucking time, then they're actually just a flesh machine, and they're just doing the same fucking thing. And it's important to rotate them out and get them like involved in the entire part of the process. Now I don't know much about production and factories and things, but that sounds very reasonable. Mrs. Producer, it looks like you've got a thing. I see you've come off mute. Do you have a thought?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I've actually worked a job that does this. Me and Nate, when we first, basically when we first met, we were living in Wisconsin, and there was a factory job out there that I happened to get where they did 12-hour shifts, and you'd work either 3 days a week or 4 days a week, and then you'd have the rest of the days off. And so it would kind of even out how many hours you worked every other week. You'd get overtime. Yeah. And they did exactly what he's describing. They rotated everybody. I think it was like every 2 or 4 hours, something like that. And it was just to like keep you fresh. I mean, the job was still mind-numbingly boring most of the time, but I mean, it kept you from falling asleep at the machine. So,
speaking of overtime and folks at work, let's give a quick shout out to our fellow Degen Nate, the Ascending Man. He's got a chat for us. Hey guys, still at work. He wishes he could be here enjoying his time with us. However, he's doing excellent things going and protecting people from dangerous bugs, and he's earning a shit ton of money in the process. So I'm glad that you're out there solving problems, broski, and that everything's going well. And we're sad that you can't be here with us, but you know what? Like, one good option is not the only option. You're out there taking care of shit, and we appreciate that.
He's keeping us off the street. He's keeping me, him, and little Soren here from having to live in a tent like Farmer says we should. So.
I told him to get a nice tent. You'll be good. Right near the beach. You just got to move like every 3 days, but it's all good.
Excellent. I don't know much about tent living, but I will say that it's probably important that Nate keeps doing the job so that way you guys can stay away from all those crazy underpasses on the 405.
You can even set up a nice AC in your tent. You're good.
Yeah, you got that's your little profile picture, right? When you take your camera off, it's got your little tent over there. Yep, there it is.
The air conditioner and the tubes coming into
unit.
It.
Yep.
I will say, if I was going to live in a tent, the only person I would want to get advice from on how to do that would be you, Farmer. So.
Yep. For the folks, we're gonna actually do a quick little AC air conditioning lesson here for the folks at home. If you guys didn't know, what air conditioning does is it takes the heat inside your house and it just puts it on the outside. That's all that it fucking does. So if you got an AC and you don't have those little tubes, or if your AC is not like half sticking out the outside, then congratulations, you're just pulling heat out of one place and you're putting it in another. That's kind of what your refrigerator does, by the way. If your refrigerator and your AC are always fighting each other. Your refrigerator is taking the heat off of the food and it's putting it inside the house. And then the AC is taking the heat from the house and putting it outside. So
that is specifically why you cannot just open your refrigerator to try to cool your house.
Yep.
Because you're doing nothing.
Well, you're burning electricity.
You're technically heating the entire house as well, because processes are not 100% efficient, as we're going to talk about today.
You can always jump in the fridge and cool off.
Yes. I like it. Zenith, I see that you have a clip for us to watch. Let's go ahead and whenever you're ready, let's roll that clip. And while you're doing that, I'm going to sort through my questions here because I'm a little bit jumbled right now. So, Mrs. Producer and Zenith, whenever you guys got that screen share, let's get it.
I imagine that most people are familiar with Simon Sinek, the man on the right. He is talking about Toyota and their processes as well. So let's hear what he has to say.
No single person is strong enough or smart enough to lead by themselves. And so the opportunity isn't to beat yourself up, but to understand what your strengths are and what you bring to the game, and then find people who have strengths that are different to yours. And if you work together, and that's why we have teams. If we were good at everything, we wouldn't need the team. We just need ourselves.
I think it also highlights the importance of being too involved in your own company so that you aren't looking for mentors outside of your own company who are thinking about
outside your industry.
Yeah, or outside your industry. Having a board of directors for me has always been wonderful because you get people who they were a former governor, or they were a chief medical officer of a big company, or they were in consumer marketing. And they deeply care about the cause and happen to care about me, so it's that safety net.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's an obligation on us as leaders to seek out those mentoring relationships that are outside of work to help create that safety net.
And this is, I'm opening a Pandora's box here, but America screwed up lean, right? When the folks from Harvard decided to bring the Toyota way to the United States, one of the biggest mistakes they made was calling it lean, because it was never about efficiency. It was about finding better ways of doing things, which is sometimes more efficient and leads to efficiency. But America, we made it about efficiency, which we made it about counting, which it never was. And there's never been a company that has fully successfully implemented lean in the United States, by the way.
Because of that.
Yeah, because they think it's a numbers thing, and it's not a numbers thing. There are things within the Toyota way, we're not going to call it lean, right? There are things within the Toyota way that are brilliant, and one of them is the Kaizen, where you take people who know nothing about a particular part of your business, and you make them go work in that and solve it for a week or two, and you mix the company up, and you let people try new things, and you create blended teams, because what's happening is somebody is bringing a point of view that nobody on that team has.
So it's actually about growth and development.
Exactly. And so somebody from, HR working on a medical thing, they may say, well, what about this? And no one's ever thought about that before. And it's not because they're necessarily smarter, it's because they have a different perspective, which is, you're paying me compliments, but I just have a different perspective.
Yeah.
And this is the value of a team, because, and this is one of the challenges in big companies. In small companies, everybody does everything. In big companies, we become, titanium silos of excellence. And we're closed to what other people have to say because they don't understand, as opposed to being curious about what other people have to say. And I loved what you said before. It's not no because, it's yes if.
There you go. The
No
Toyota
because
way.
and yes if. I like those phrases, the no because and the yes if. I'm finishing up tight. What's that?
Sorry. Go ahead, Will. Sorry.
Oh, I love the just the difference in phrasing and framing. That's something that I like to pay attention to. I like to practice like wordsmithing and persuasion and influence and hypnosis and like all of those things that help people think a particular thing that I want them to think whenever I'm talking to them. So when people say no because it's closed-minded, it's like I'm ending the conversation, but like they say yes if, it's like it's the same substance, right? Because it's like problem can't happen. There is a thing that is like stopping it. So you can look at that problem and say, I can't do it because there's problem. Or you can look at it as this problem goes away and then we can do it. So like it's just the way that you approach any sort of complicated or thing or something like that. And I enjoy that. So that's what I had on that little bit there.
That really makes me think of from Rich Dad Poor Dad when he says, instead of saying I can't afford that, say how can I afford that?
Yes.
And I wanted to mention, I really liked that clip. I liked the concept that they mentioned about how small companies, everybody can do everything, but in larger companies, it's very specific. You only do your one certain thing, and then you're all kind of, it's almost like you build up an environment of almost like not competition, but I'm trying to think of the correct word for this. It's not competition. It's not necessarily resentment, but you build an environment where everybody has like no idea what every other job is doing, and then you all just kind of point the finger like, well, you don't know what you're doing at my particular job, and you get that kind of like, I don't know what to call that. I can't think of a word for it right now, but I know there's got to be a word for that.
Ambiguity?
I don't know.
like not what's like false confidence or something.
I was thinking more of just like no one is clear as to what other things do. I mean, the technical term of what you're looking for is unintended compartmentalization. So compartmentalization can be a security feature, especially if you're working on classified information. The idea is that each individual person has a very narrow field of view, and they work on the thing that they work on, and it doesn't touch anyone else's stuff except for a few handfuls of people who are organizing the entirety of the thing together and are the ones that put the pieces together. So that way, if any one of your little boxes becomes compromised, the classified information inside of that box is the only thing that's compromised. The other secret parts of your organization or project are still secure because they haven't been hacked yet or compromised or anything. But if you do compromise one of the people that has the oversight of everything and sees everything going on, that's where you really get the major security issue. What you're talking about is kind of like it's not exactly working in a classified information or classified like project kind of thing. It's more of you can unintentionally create that silo effect if your company is so large, or imagine like the high school that you went to that's like 1,000 people in every class. It's like, are you going to know every person you go to school with? Absolutely not. And so it's kind of the same thing in large companies, which is that you know your team, your division, maybe your department a bit, but anything outside of that, you're probably very oblivious to. So you just don't have you don't even know it exists. So you don't know how to like talk about it intelligently or understand how you guys interface at all.
Yep, that's exactly it. And Nate talks about it all the time. Everybody talks about it. Any big chain job that you'll go work, you'll hear it all the time. Like night shift does this or day shift does that, and management doesn't know about this, or
it's the dreaded them, the they.
Yeah, yep.
They did that.
I know we've all seen a bunch of memes of night shift didn't do shit,
Yep,
Yeah.
that or the who closed last night. This place is disgusting. Who closed?
And then like alternatively, you look at what was it, Carnegie, the steel guy who just wrote
Dale
a big
Carnegie.
number. Dale Carnegie. I almost said Andrew Carnegie, but like there's all these Carnegies doing things.
Is it Dale?
I don't know. It was one of them, but like he wrote on the floor the big chalk number of like this is how much product the night crew like did, and then the day crew comes in. They're like, "What's that big number on the floor?" They're like, "Oh, that's how many units the night crew made like here at this factory." And they're like, "Oh yeah, well we'll show them or whatever." And then like they had their little so like you could look at the them as being like oh, they're evil bad actors here to ruin my space or something. Like everyone needs a bad guy. You can look at everything as being bad guys or being on your team. Moonpilled Rational Optics had a fantastic little thing here talking about neurolinguistics programming, and we need more NLP in our field. Mr. Producer, can you pull up? Yeah, that one, NLP training, and then the one right above it. We need more of that in our field. By the way, shout out to Moonpilled Rational Optics, who has joined us, by the way. We're just doing live chat shout outs right now. But yes, you're absolutely right, Moonpilled Rational Optics. We need a little bit of neurolinguistics programming and check it out, the like reframing the way that we think about things. So we can look at it as the them, or we can look at it as them enemy, or we can look at it as like them, they could be our friends. All we have to do is like a little bit of work and figure out like where we come together and where we meet up and do all that other stuff. So that is
then
excellent.
I have a quick question here, Zenith, with your clip. Do you
What's
think
the
that
point?
was kind of do you think that was the point that he was trying to make when he said that America has never been able to implement the ideas of the Toyota way successfully?
This is one of the 2 points of that video. The first one is something that you guys talked about previously, which was the cross-training effect, or mixing people up in the organization. But one of the points that I wanted to focus on is exactly what you brought up here, which is that Lean, Six Sigma, and the Toyota method, whatever you want to call it, they're all technically slightly different things, but they all originate out of Japan in the same time and have largely same effects and use similar processes. So specifically what they're talking about here is that in the United States, we are constantly trying to improve efficiency to try to get numbers up. But what Simon's properly pointing out here is that the Toyota way is not purely about efficiency. The point of the book is not about how to be efficient. It's about how to do things better. And it doesn't mean like astronomically better next quarter. It's just constantly better every day. Every generation, the new guy gives the project to the old guy. The old guy points out the detail. So that way that guy learns and he's going to teach the next generation behind them. That's concept of stacking small wins. I think what Simon, this is kind of one of the things that Simon talks about a good bit, if you've watched a lot of his videos, is that it's kind of the feeling that we've lost the plot a little bit here in the West, and specifically as we move further and farther into the modern digital age, which is that we're focusing on less and less human aspects. And the Toyota way is fundamentally about the base philosophy of how you build the business and how you operate. It also has other aspects about like, yeah, you should shift your paradigm. You should think about what is waste, what adds value, what doesn't, that kind of stuff. But I think he gets to the core with that video, and he talks about like, hey, you could think this is about numbers, and in one sense, you might be right, but you're also ignoring the other half of it.
Yeah, the other half being like the
Values,
numbers are just how you
philosophy.
quantify. Yeah,
Exactly.
Basically, I think the other half is pretty much kind of the human aspect, right?
Correct. There's a good quote that kind of gets passed around a good bit when talking about this kind of stuff. It's the idea of what you measure is what people will care about. If you don't care about something, then don't measure it, because tracking the data is inherently, people are going to be smart and try to figure things out. So they figure out, if you're tracking something, it means that this thing must be important in some way. Therefore, I should try to maximize this as the best reflection on me. This is one of those weird things that people talk about where it's like, it's kind of a fallacy, or like this weird, like unintended effect, where it's when you start publicly publishing the numbers on surgeons and their operation procedure failure and success rate, what you see is that theoretically, if you start measuring this kind of thing, you would think that you might get like a very accurate representation of the data. But what you're actually doing is skewing the data now, because as a surgeon, you know now that you're going to be graded, or this number is going to be more publicly available. So what you're going to do is you're going to try to kind of like pad the numbers a little bit by specifically not taking risky decisions and risky procedures. So you're going to decline the risky procedures and just stick to the stuff that you know that you can nail every time to really get those numbers up. The same thing kind of goes with crime statistics as well, which is like, if the DA comes in and talks about like, I want to, or we're going to be tough on crime and reduce the amount of felonies. It's like, okay, I guess
he's not charging people for felonies.
Correct. It's like, if you don't actually address the underlying issue, what instead is going to happen is that your officers who are getting graded based on the mandate of the DA, they're pretty much going to be like, is this a felony, or can I write this off as a misdemeanor?
Yeah.
It's by measuring it, you're actually, by shining the spotlight on the thing you're trying to observe, you are fundamentally changing the thing that you are observing.
This reminds me of like the particles, that like when you observe a particle, it changes its like the physics thing.
The Schrodinger's cat. It's there. Imagine there's a theoretical cat in a box. How do you know if a cat is dead or alive? It could be dead. It could be alive. You're never going to know until you actually look. Or that might be parallel dimensions.
No, I got this one. So Schrodinger has the box. It's a lead-lined box with a radioactive capsule inside it. When you open the box, it breaks the radioactive thing, which will kill the cat. So you don't know if the cat is alive or dead inside the box. And when you open it, the cat's definitely dead. So it's like, that's the Schrodinger's. That's one of my favorite ones. What you got, Farmer?
I was going to say, I think the reason why it's never been implemented in the West, it's probably more of a cultural thing.
Yeah.
This is a big component.
Yeah, I think because like the Japanese have a very different mindset of how they do stuff. You got to remember, during like World War II, they, instead of surrendering, they would literally take a samurai sword and drive it into their chest. Yeah. Like it's like I said, culturally speaking, like they're just different. And I think we can find that throughout the world, right? That different cultures behave differently when it comes to work. And like here in America, everybody's about grinding and how can you get more, including employees. How can I get more money? And I think the companies look at it the same way. Like, instead of, they're looking at it in terms of profit. Like, what can we do to cut the cost while making more profits? And I think it's because we have a more capitalistic mindset here in the West.
I think that it's part I don't know if capitalism is not an entity in itself. It's a description of free markets and free exchange that people voluntarily trade goods and services for each other. What I think what we're describing here is that it's the difference between kind of like a survival pressure culture where you get competition as your driver, as opposed to what I believe Japanese society is more of as a shame-driven society, and it's more honor-driven society, which is that their last name is technically the name that they go by. Only do you ever call someone by their first name if you like really know them on a very personal basis, or you're like intimate with them. And it's that idea that the name you're called by is the same name that your parents and your grandparents and your children will also be called by, and you represent your family. And that trying to do good on the family name is very important. And then it kind of goes back also to the idea of the Toyota way is not to like lay off people, but to reassign people. One of the ways they also can do this is that there's a phenomenon in Japanese culture where they kind of don't really fire people in corporate companies. And if they do ever make like the mental decision, like this person needs to go, what they'll do is they'll just literally not assign you anything and just make you sit in the office next to everyone else who is working. So you just feel this internal shame of guilt of, I am contributing nothing. I am worthless. This makes me want to die. I should just resign and go find a different job. That's how I handle that.
I would agree with you, Zenith, that in the West, there is no shame. I will agree with you. You got no shame over there.
I'm not saying there's no shame, although I'm not going to fight you on that one because I think we're unfortunately headed that direction culturally, but that's not the point of this conversation. The point is that I think the pressures and the things that people care about are different, which is that instead of I'm not saying that we're an honorless society. I just think that the incentives are aligned differently, and it really reflects in the culture and how we think about ourselves and our position in the world and our own country.
Yeah, I mean that is, I mean, what you mentioned about companies not firing them. Like I've always found that weird. I've never understood that mindset. Like you mean they'll just leave you there in the company and not tell you to do anything? And like you said, eventually a lot of them will resign, but for the most part, there isn't that like the mass layoffs we have here in America, where people are always getting laid off all the time from companies and jumping around. It's just like I said, culturally they just have a different mindset when it comes to that. To me,
I think you're entirely correct. Go for it.
Go
Will.
ahead,
Sorry.
Z.
Oh, I was going to say, Farmer,
just...
you're.
Go ahead.
I'm done. Go.
Okay, I was going to talk about like Ponzi-nomics and basically like how in the West we've adopted the idea of like everything's like this is one of Miguel's talking points. Dollar cost crypto. Shout out to Miguel. But one of the things that I learned listening to him is he's talking about like everything's a fucking Ponzi. You know, like whether it's child birth rates, whether it's like a company has to constantly be getting like 8% growth per year, whether it's like you need to be making more and more and more and more and more money as you like progress through life, whether it's like we print more and more money. Like the idea is everything's like not Ponzi in the sense of like, oh, someone's going to scam you for all your worth, but like the literal growth is necessitous at all points in order to like survive. There's been like an over adoption, perhaps this is my thesis anyways, right? There's been an over adoption of that mindset to the point where like everyone's trying to like gain maximum resources at all times. I'm going to toss it back to you, Z, because I see you put on your fancy hat.
They don't want you to know this, but everything's a Ponzi. Even your life is a Ponzi scheme. So I think the Miguel's point here is not wrong. It's kind of a bit of a black pill take that ignores a little bit about the differentiations. But what is a Ponzi? A Ponzi, or a Ponzi scheme, as commonly referred to, not a pyramid scheme. Pyramid scheme is that you go get 4 friends who each go 4 friends, and then each one of them does some sort of like minimal business activity, and then you, as a result of having 4 people under you, profit from them, and then the person above them also profits from that guy and all the people below them, aka your multi-level marketing stuff. But what a Ponzi is it's a much more simple scam, which is that you purport, it's pretty much fraud. It is fraud, effectively. You purport to have some sort of legitimate business activity that produces income or revenue. You attract investors based on that revenue or income that's alleged. So like I'm running the scam. I convince Will to give me $100, and then I give him like $20 back as a show of like, oh, hey, here are the profits for this quarter of your investment. And you're like, oh, wow, this actually works. And then Will says, I like this. This is good ROI. Here's $10,000. Yep. And then at this point, I rug Will because there never was legitimate business function. I was just slowly giving him his money back to him after he gave me that lump sum initially. So that's what a Ponzi is. So theoretically, like when we say a Ponzi, like look at 401ks. What is a 401k? Everyone puts money into the system, and then a few people take out money at a time so that it doesn't actually collapse. But if too many people try to take money out, the whole thing collapses because there never was a legitimate business venture. It's just people pooling money, and certain people were allowed to take money back out of it.
Zenith,
that's what we mean by everything's a Ponzi.
I think you just described a rug pull.
No, I described a Ponzi. A rug pull is part of a Ponzi.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Or it's a collapse.
It's
The more
all
we went on, the more I started thinking about, oh God, I've been through this. I've been rug pulled.
You are correct though. Like, what is like the rug pull that we are probably referring to in crypto terms is like, you launch the coin, everyone's like, oh cool, the coin's coming out, buy. But then you need to realize that like the founders owned and still own like 90% of the supply, and then they just dump it on everyone. The way that works in the crypto market is that it's not actually the dollar value of the token, but you can kind of imagine the economic energy that's put into the system. So there was zero economic energy put in, but they still had 90% of that effectively zero. So then the second that other people put dollars in, those dollars were at risk. So now they can pull out 90% of whatever the market had put into the system.
Yep.
It's all a Ponzi.
It's all a Ponzi, baby. Your life's a Ponzi. You perform these legitimate business activities for 70, 80 years, and then one day your heart rug pulls you and you die.
Yep. It's about
That's
the
a
friends you
Beautiful
make,
analogy. I
gambling
love it.
in between.
You spent all that time trying to invest in this body or your corporeal form only for one day to get rugged.
Rugged. Hopefully, you know what would be interesting, and I'm gonna like, I'll bring us back to the topic of conversation. But like, I've enjoyed this little tangent we've gone down. But
I got a topic for you.
let me make my thought and then I'll toss it over to you. But I wonder if there's going to be some sort of solution for liquidity providing and rugging and all that stuff in this cycle or the next. If that would be something that like that might come up. That's my musing that I'm just thinking about like just now, like because rug pulls, it's pretty fucking common. People put in a liquidity pool and then fucking people pull it. You know, I wonder if there's going to be a massively adopted crypto tech that solves that problem, or if I'm just kind of daydreaming in the clouds, or if there's something that already exists and I just don't know about it.
Nah,
But
there will never be enough liquidity for anybody to pull out of everything. Like if everybody pulled out on the markets right now, it would all just like there's never gonna be. So I think like it's just like it's all a Ponzi.
Yeah.
If everyone tried to sell their house at the same time, no one could get $1 for them.
Correct.
I'll give them $1 for it.
It's all just a matter of like of the hang on, let me pull up my fancy schmancy little I've got it on my favorited pictures now so I can get it nice and quickly. There we go. It's all just nothing but a bunch of campfire stories, ladies and germs. That's the point. But Zenith, you had a thought for us. You have
I did
topic
a
of discussion.
pondering, an inkling of an idea, if you will. A farmer had said something earlier about it seems that one of the ways that the modern business cycle operates now is that in order to increase profits and revenue for the quarter or whatever, you either cut costs, you lay people off, or do something like that. Shout out to Aaron Clary, aka Cappy. This is one of the phenomenon that he's been talking about lately a lot on his streams. You might remember him from when we covered Poor Richard's retirement. It's probably along the similar thought of that book because this is just an expansion on it. But it's the idea is that unfortunately, as we've gotten more and more into the modern age, it's that old style GDP growth was very focused on stuff like the Toyota Way, which was this is slow, sustainable, philosophically based growth of a business that is trying to perform a function. Unfortunately, what Cappy describes as what he sees in the modern market is that it's a lot of people who don't really care about the entirety of the market or the function they provide. It's more about a numbers game. And it goes exactly back to the video of Simon Sinek, which is that lean is not about the numbers. It's about doing better work slowly and slowly. It's not about always having better numbers. It's about ensuring that you're constantly growing, constantly learning, constantly improving. So the phenomenon that we're seeing right now is that, unfortunately, because people kind of have shifted away from the function and value and more towards numbers, we see that phenomenon that Cappy talks about, which is that people are like, oh yeah, how do I increase GDP or earnings this quarter? Fire a bunch of people, or give them less food in the Chipotle bowl. It's stuff like that, as opposed to the other answer, which is less sexy and is not going to give as much money in the short term, which is no, slow, sustainable growth. Keep it steady, keep it even, keep it going for the long term. The goal is not to make more money than the last guy did last quarter. The goal is we want to keep making money as we move further and further into the future. I think this is also resembled in the fact that specifically when we talk about stocks, which by the way are representations of ownerships of companies, it's less about dividends and now it's more about growth. And that's the thing that I think also plays into this theory.
Yep. Yeah, so like the long-term asset wealth building versus the like make me rich until I get there kind of
Correct.
thing. So it encourages diamond hands. So that's good. That's nice. And then yeah, Paul Sachs had a nice little comment on that down below. Just sent make the normies DCA and they didn't even realize it. Fatality. Yeah, what is it like? $60 million or $60 billion or some astronomically crazy amount of money is going into like 401ks every single week or month or pay period or year.
I think the entirety of all 401ks in the United States is $39 trillion.
Fuck.
Fun fact:
Big old Ponzi.
The total GDP of I might check this one up. It's either I think the total GDP of the world is $90 trillion annually, and the GDP of the U.S. is like 25 or 26 trillion.
Jesus Christ! And so, like, yeah, there's more money being put into the 401ks than there is GDP. So the amount of shit that we're cranking out is somehow less than the amount that we are putting into retirements. So
real quick,
let that one sizzle down in there.
What does GDP stand for? I don't know.
Oh, GDP is. Do you want to take it?
Gross domestic product. So basically, let's say the United States
product.
The United States makes pencils. The cost of all those pencils is $1. The United States sells 25 trillion pencils, and so that's the GDP of the United States.
GDP is the totality of every good or service that is produced inside of a nation in a given time period. Mm-hmm. So it measures total output. This is one of the main metrics that the Fed actually uses when talking about what they're trying to accomplish with what they have going on. Because sustainable GDP growth looks like 3 to 4% a year if you're really cooking. 2 to 3 is more average. You know what other figure the Fed tries to keep below those numbers? Inflation, because if you are inflating your currency faster than you can grow your economy is technically shrinking, because the amount of money to go buy things is inflating faster than the amount of things to buy with said money. Therefore, we might be able to put a few more items on the shelf, but in dollar terms, it's not going to keep up. It's going to be a lot slower than the amount of money that people are willing to throw at those specific items. This is kind of the basis for why inflation is very not good and why fiat currencies have the ability to fail drastically. So when it does come to GDP growth, there's really a few ways you can do this. You either have more natural resources, you either have technological innovation, you have entrepreneurial effort, or you have a little bit of like investment and growth. So you either literally have more resources in the dirt, in the ground that you can go sell to people. You either make technology that's better and you can sell for a higher price than your competitors. You have people that find ways to be more efficient with businesses and run businesses better. Or you have to effectively find ways to kind of manipulate the money supply a little bit in order to do
war.
that. And that's war.
Well, war is the product. That's a service.
War is artificial demand is what it is. So it increases the amount of stuff that people are willing to buy.
Yep.
So,
you put a little bit of pressure, and then
or you
the
can
folks
just go
start
take it
spending
from
money.
your neighbors.
Yes, that is correct.
Conquest.
You
There's many an empire that would agree with you on this one.
Yep.
No, I'm just saying it's just happened so many times. Like,
yep. Well, in the newer version of Conquest, it's like it's not even taking. You just convince them to like assimilate, right? You just get in their heads as a culture, and then you don't even have to kill them. You just get them on your team. You get them to be a contributing part of your whatever the heck, and then like you don't own their GDP, but now you're doing business with a friend who is going to bolster your net worth. So like you can go and you can take it by force, and they might hate you, they might love you, who the fuck knows, right? Maybe we blew them up, we go kill some Libyan dictators or whatever, and put some new ones in charge, and then they turn the country into like a slave labor market. Or maybe it's like you push out the bad guys or the people that are repressing the locals or something, right? There's a whole bunch of different ways to look at it, but it's like war. Zenith is absolutely right. War is it's artificial demand, right? You can put a little bit of pressure on people to spend their money differently when you're sticking a knife into their side. So it's like that's the whole concept as I understand it, anyways.
There's a terrible joke in here, something about the world's 2 oldest professions is conquest and prostitution.
Yep, that's correct.
You either go take the stuff or you take the people.
Yep, it is. This is like what when all else fails, the guys join the military and the girls go be strippers or prostitutes or whatever. It's like that's your backup. You know, you go join the military or you go become a stripper. Now, some of us are, you know, wise enough to do it right off the get-go, such as Zenith and myself. You start your adult life off becoming a stripper. Yep, exactly.
Sell that body to somebody. They just happen to name Uncle Sam.
Shout out to all the military men employing all the hookers.
Yes, and that's the thing, right? Is it's just it's circulating money, man. And then so the government takes the money from the people, it gives it to the military people. The military people give their money to the strippers and the tattoo artists and the pizza delivery drivers, and then those guys go and then they
Can't
do whatever
the dude
happens.
selling TRT in the gym locker room.
Yes, there's the guys selling gear.
Trend.
Yep,
Yeah.
the guy's selling gear, right? But the military gives the money to the government gives the money to the military, who gives it to the prostitutes, tattoo artists, and trend sellers, and then they go and they interact with other people and do some stuff, and then the government taxes them and gets the money back. And then this is all part of the great circle of life. Speaking of great circle of life, I'm going to circle us right back to the topic at hand. And
in case it's not obvious, that was very, very heavy sarcasm for that period. I know we went from legitimately trying to explain GDP to the shitpost of the military economic world order, but there you go.
This is good though. But I'm gonna reel it back in with like a little bit of a question for the panel, you guys. So we're sort of kind of talking about long-term thinking versus short-term thinking here with GDP and with crazy fast growth versus crazy slow growth. So one of the things that the Toyota Way advocates for is the long-term thinking. And oftentimes, especially in the West, we're put into pressure to be doing things in like fast-paced environment and like don't move slowly, don't be deliberate, like go now, do it all, get the quick gains and get the fuck out, and then like go live your life fast and high, drink a lot, drive fast, and get there quickly and get in some crashes or whatever. First off, like how realistic is it in the West to prioritize long-term goals over short-term goals? And then what are some things that like the folks at home can do to start leaning more towards the long-term goals, gratifications, whatever, over the short-term goals? Do you guys have any solutions for the folks at home, having read this Toyota Way? Anything that can be applied, perhaps, from the principles?
Society's effed.
Society's effed. All of it?
Well, thank you, Farmer. I appreciate your enthusiasm.
Are you talking?
All right, guys, that's the end of the stream. That was all I wanted to know.
You said specifically the West. Go. You did say specifically the West, so it's like
good work, Cass.
Most people here like they don't value that. They want everything with that, instant gratification, whether it be from receiving services to companies, like you said, that all they care about is their quarterly reports.
Yes.
So it's kind of like I don't see it reversing anytime soon. I mean, the only way is changing culturally what we value as a society, but it seems to be going the opposite way.
I got a specification for you, Farmer. One, is everyone lost, or are there people that can be saved? Two,
everybody here in the book club is saved.
Sure. So like, and that's where I kind of want to like direct this question is like, you're correct. I think unfortunately and like a little bit cynically, like there's a lot of read them last rites, give them the morphine. You can't save these ones, right? But there's probably some wounded folks out here. Like after these bombs go off, we can find the people that like, oh, they have a broken arm. They're not sticking with like a piece of shrapnel sticking out of their neck. Like these people are probably savable. We might be able to lead them over to our area, provide them some like first aid and like help them change their mindsets and understand things better. How do we find those people? How do we find the guys that can switch from short-term to long-term thinking? And then what can we do to help lead them there? Do they exist? How do we get them? And what do we do once we find them?
I mean, they definitely exist. There's people out here with plenty of values and morals and doesn't like the way society is heading. But I think for the most part, most people just kind of find themselves, but they just they kind of join small communities, but overall, when you were talking about like society, like I don't see it happening in a big scope, but I do see like that there is parts of society that still want to uphold certain ways of thinking, right? Traditions and have certain morals that they believe in. But for the most part, it's just going the other way. I do believe that we should try though. I haven't given up hope. I just see it for what it is. It's like it looks like it's screwed, but that doesn't mean just because you see that it's screwed that you shouldn't keep trying. Basically.
Okay. I like that. I like that. Zenith, you got something, bro? You had your your mic's not working.
No, it's working. I just am trying not to open up the soapbox because I think this is a topic that can honestly go on for multiple hours. The answer to your question,
6-hour stream again.
Hey, fucking here we are.
I have to go help out with another stream tonight, so thankfully you people are saved from that.
We can just carry it over.
Yeah, I was gonna say we'll just roll it right over.
Yeah.
Just open up the effing hangout with us just talking about this still.
Yeah.
Basically, hey, just dual cast it, Mrs. Producer. There's a way we can add the YouTube into our thing and just stream it to their audience.
Dual cast it. Oh my god.
We have permission for that, unfortunately. Through YouTube, which we don't. So.
Well, anyway, Zenith, so what's the TLDR?
The TLDR is culture and belonging, which is that I think that what we're trying to describe here is a problem that is not instantaneous and it is not entirely endemic to the human condition, because for a long period of time people belonged to groups and belonged to societies that they cared about and felt genuine responsibility, ownership, and belonging to. So unfortunately what we've seen in the United States in the last 50, 60, 70 years is a dissolution of a lot of those ties that ties local communities together, whether it's the nuclear family, whether it's local communities, or just not being exposed to all the garbage on the internet that leads you to feel like you're part of this massive global network where you actually know nobody, but you still are part of it. So you feel like you are part of nothing and know nobody. But the correct answer is that it's local communities. And I forget the name of the author, but it's the guy that wrote Bowling Alone. He talks about this, which is that it's the dissolution of social clubs, social groups, social belongings, whether you are a churchgoer or not. It's the local community that it was something larger than yourself, but super easily identifiable and accessible and tangible. You actually go see these people. You can talk to these people and hug them. And I think we've had a dissolution of that, which has been replaced by consumerism. And that is where you get that short-term, that dopamine hit kind of style of thing, which is that we've shifted to that and the attention economy. So everyone's competing for attention. So everything is hyped, overblown, oversold. And then at the end of the day, people are kind of just felt with an empty feeling inside and thinking about life and say is this it? Is this all there is? It's no. If you want to build things that are meaningful, it is not hyped, it is not oversold, and it is not instantaneous gratification. It is that you and your buddies have to show up in the parking lot of the 7-Eleven with your cars and hang out and take pictures and be cool and swap stories about how to fix problems you're having. And then eventually more people are going to show up if you keep doing it every time and you keep not being a shithead. You gotta care about your community, and you gotta understand that
7-Eleven too, right? Get some beers while we're there.
Maybe for the end of the night, but if you're cruising with the boys, make sure that's the last stop. But the point is that if you consume more than you build, you're going to end up with a negative trajectory. If you constantly build, you're going to end up with a positive trajectory. So I think it's the incentive structure that we have right now that really leads towards the instant gratification and the dopamine hit cycle. The great irony to this is that who really succeeds in all of this? Anybody who has a shred of delayed gratification or the ability to have patience, dedication, and discipline. Those are the people that are killers. And those are the people that if you can shrug off the nihilism and the hopelessness for long enough and stay dedicated and focused, you're going to start to reap rewards to the point where you actually see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's just, it's hard when you're in the consumption cycle and you feel like life is void and empty, and it's just empty consumption and empty calories and empty programming with no meaning, and just there you go.
I've got a visual that I think maybe describes this a little bit. Mrs. Producer, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and sharing my screen. So this is part of my top-notch graphics display abilities and skills here. And Zenith, like you're describing like people being on the bottom and all connected to each other, and then there's like people that are like in this pyramid describes kind of like people in different social classes and their connectivity to each other. So I would say that like what I interpreted you saying, Zenith, is like you've got all these people that like they have all these things in common, they have all these things and all this stuff that brings them together, and then they start going away from the delayed gratification, and it starts like cutting them off from one each other. They're still stuck in the same like class, right? And now like because they're not interacting with each other, there's like a lot less hope for growing and then hopping up into the next section of the pyramid and getting wealthier and wealthier and stuff over here. So that was kind of what I was thinking about while you were talking about that. What do you think?
I think what you're
Off the mark.
partly drawing here, I don't know if you're doing it intentionally or not, is Maslow's hierarchy or self-satisfaction and how you view yourself in the world, which is that bottom level, you have base survival instinct. Up from that, you have literal reproduction. And then after that, you start getting towards things like mattering in a social circle, mastery of a skill or a trade, and then finally like self-actualization and like philosophical thought about yourself and your place in the world and morality and all that kind of stuff. It's I think that there's a degree of difference between what we're talking about with Western culture versus what we looked at in the Toyota way, which is that the culture we're seeing described in the Toyota way are people that were not seduced by the illusion of instantaneous profits over the next quarter that's infinitely repeatable, even though it's not. It's people that understand that they're part of a country that they care about, and they want to make the company the best that they can for the people around them and their country that they're so proud of.
Okay, doke. I was thinking a little more about like just like people interacting like more of a caste system, like the hypergamy thing that Rolo talks about, and that's like why we have the people on the bottom here that are like, you know,
a caste system is very different from a hypergamous society.
Sure, but like I'm trying to describe the concept here. So like my words might not be great, but just basically like when you have a whole bunch of people that would normally have ties to each other and then they stop interacting with each other, it's like it ceases their ability to generate as much wealth and then escape from that caste or from that like class of economic energy, whatever, and hop up into the next one. So like when I draw these, hang on, I gotta pull up the dang. There we go. So when I draw these lines that separate the people on the bottom, right? Like when the people start chasing their own thing and doing their own stuff and they don't have the same things in common anymore, they're not interacting as much. They can't, like, it's harder to build and harder to generate and harder to like level up out of that Ponzi area that you're at, because like once you start boxing yourself in, then your opportunities for interaction and like getting cooler people doing cooler things starts dwindling and whatnot. So that's what I was thinking of with this little graphic-y thing. So
I think I understand what you're saying. You do have a point though, which is that I think that teamwork is honestly one of the fundamental bases of society existing in the first place. Because if you cannot get people to cooperate together and not try to kill each other over the last berry in the village, you're not going to have a village at all. But if you can get people that can live together and work together and cooperate towards some sort of common goal, that's how you build society, and that's how everything has evolved. So the second that you stop like thinking of having people on your team that you can actually work with, you start seeing adversaries everywhere, and that's where you start competing in the negative sense, that you are actively trying to compete in a survival sense instead of the abundance sense.
Gotcha.
Even though we do live in the absolute richest time in all of human history right now.
Well, we're too busy spending that time like looking up pictures of cats and things.
I think the triangle was backwards. The people on top are usually very united, right? It's usually the people on the lower ends of society that don't seem to have that don't really have any close ties to each other. They're always fighting each other. And you know, Zenith can put his little tinfoil hat back on it. We can go into conspiracy theories that's how they want it. But
it's not conspiracy theory. That's like modern philosophical thought.
Yeah, but like
Farber's entirely correct here. You know what the hustle bro buzzword that everyone tries to pitch is to be wealthy? Networking. You know what that means? Just knowing other people and working with them.
Yeah, not being a dick, making friends, getting wealthy.
Yes, it's almost like
making friends and influencing people.
Yes, it's almost like we covered multiple books where that is the basis of just like doing better. How do I do better? How do I make more money? be less of a dick. Work with people.
Stop being a
Yeah, and
dick.
like I said, put yourself in a position where you can network with people that have that that you have things in common with, like
Yep.
like when you go golfing, right? You'll bump into people that have probably same common interests and you, and you can network with those kind of people.
That's
but you gotta
literally
put
how I
yourself-
made some of my latest friends here. Is I literally bumped into some dudes on the golf course because it was going so slow, and we're like, "Hey man, you want to group up?" And we're like, "Yeah, for sure." And then after that, we were like, "You guys want to go to the bar?" And they're like, "Hell yeah, let's go to the bar." And then after that, we're like, "You guys want to come over and have barbecue?" Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, but you got to put yourself out there,
Yep.
And not
Put
be a
yourself
dick.
out there. Sign up for crypto courses. Meet cool people.
Go golf course.
Go golfing. Meet cool people. Hang out at your local library. Meet cool people. I don't know. Buy a fucking McLaren and go meet other McLaren.
Yeah, like if everybody around you is a dumbass, put yourself in a different
Yeah,
different
for real.
scenario where you're gonna meet people that probably are more like-minded than the actual people when you grew up with. Beer is a lubricant like a motherfucker.
Yep.
I know. So unfortunately,
Especially outside of 7-Eleven.
alcohol has destroyed people's lives and can be a very dangerous substance.
Alcohol has
However,
given people
at the same
the
time-
opportunity to destroy their own lives. The alcohol hasn't done it. The alcohol is a tool. The person wielding the fucking tool is the one that's destroying their own lives.
Correct.
It's-
My point,
yeah.
though, is that alcohol is a great social lubricant, and there's a decent chance that a large part of society would not exist if people had not maybe had a beer, loosened up, talked to that cute girl, been willing to
100%.
kiss that boy. You never know.
Or that
Grandma
girl
and
you
grandpa
thought
might
was
have never
cute.
have
So is opium. People smoke opium sometimes, but you gotta not OD on heroin. So it's like there's an appropriate way to use a tool.
I feel like we had a
and
point
there's
there,
an inappropriate way to use
and
a
then
tool.
I feel like you just took the
I got
football
an
and
opium
spiked
joint.
it.
Yep. That's my so like yeah, if you beer is the lubricant, right? But you don't you put lubricant on the moving parts that need to move. You don't put it in your child's fucking cereal, right? You use the tool correctly. You don't use it incorrectly. So just be nuanced and have a little bit of understanding that if X plus Y equals Z, then I need to, understand X plus Y equals Z. Or maybe someone else is X plus Y equals A or whatever the hell. The point is understand what you're doing, use your tools correctly, and do things of that nature. And speaking of nature,
Can we pull
Let's
up
see.
Paul's comment? He had a
Yes,
really good
please
point
do.
after the beer of beers of
Touch
lubricant of
ass.
friendship. There you go. Get off me, nerd. Get outside.
no,
Go touch some ass.
I like touch ass
Grass.
better than grass.
Touch
That's
ass is better.
fucking-
Touch ass is much better.
You're gonna have a very interesting life if instead of touching grass you go and you touch ass. So I will say that you just need to be very nuanced on the type of ass that you're touching. So wow,
So I guess our viewers have learned something today. We all prefer apparently touching ass over touching grass on this panel. So
That's
If
how
I had-
society propagates, baby.
if I had a choice between the two, I know which one I would prefer to choose. That's all I gotta say.
In a hot tub or something.
Sometimes you just gotta go outside and touch some ass, Fucking A. I love you, Paul. And speaking of loving you, Paul, I'm gonna do another 2 shout outs. We've got some more folks joining us over here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Producer, can you pull up our first one? We've got Hex Glenn saying he's waving the hand, which means hello. For those of you guys that don't speak sign language, waving of hand means hello, so I will go ahead and translate for you. And next up, we got Tin Top saying, "What's up, Hexikins?" He's wishing us peace, as opposed to this version of the sign, which means shove it up your the thing that Paul Sachs wants everyone to go outside and touch. So there's some pants are still optional in the Degen Roundtable. That's right. You guys don't know if I'm wearing pants right now. I mean, I guess if I step back far enough, you can see. But yeah. Absolutely. And let's see. Let me see if are there any other fun little. Oh, Paul Sachs talking about the E2s and E3s wifing up foreign anchor women. That's always fun. Definitely lots of Simpson uniform guys. If any military folks are out there listening to this right now, the best advice I could give you is don't wife them up. I know your pay will double, but don't wife them up. They'll divorce you, and then they'll take way more than half your pay, and then you'll be screwed. And then Paul Sachs also talking about drunk history, teaching us that years ago humans excelled because of walking upright, thumbs, and beer to not get sick. You're absolutely right. I think the first use of beer was basically like an easy way to get liquid carbohydrates that store longer than grains and things. And original beers were like 2 or 3%. They weren't like the 4 and 5% that they are nowadays. But
beer
yep.
is the oldest recorded recipe in human history,
dating
back to Mesopotamia. Fun facts.
Hell yeah.
Wow, you learn something every day. I never knew.
All right, guys. I'm going to bring us back to the Toyota way. Speaking of beer and touching ass, the concept of Namawashi involves making decisions slowly by consensus. How can organizations ensure that this approach doesn't lead to analysis paralysis? I'm going to actually skip that question. I just wanted to say something funny as a non sequitur.
Let's talk about Muda.
Yes. Okay, so actually, I have a definition for Muda. So for the folks at home that don't know, I've already read what Muda is. However, for the folks who are just now joining us, Muda is a Japanese word that means waste or activity that does not add value to the process or product. And
the second half of that definition is the real game changer, in my opinion, on this one.
Yes.
It's the difference between just being efficient to actually observing what is the thing that makes you money, as opposed to what is things that you're doing for no effect.
Yep. So for the folks who are not inside our Telegram, which you guys should totally join at t.me/Degen Book Club. For those of you that are not part of the 26 cool cats and kittens that are privy to this information, the context for Muda in the Toyota production system is eliminating Muda is central to improving efficiency and productivity. So one of the big points of the book is like the productivity and the elimination of waste. A lot of industrial companies would just focus on the different parts of the production process. So like in the process of making a pencil, there's a guy who makes the eraser, there's a guy who makes the piece of metal that wraps around the eraser onto the pen or onto the pencil, there's the guy that like shaves the piece of wood, there's the guy that drills out the hole for the graphite, there's the guy that makes the graphite tip, all of that stuff. So in the normal production process, each single one of those people is trying to make as many of their particular thing as possible. And odds are they're not all working at the same pace. One of them is going to be making a shit ton more than the others. So like we got a fuck ton of erasers and we've got nowhere near the number of pencils that we need in order to make like the same amount of like pencils out of these erasers and stuff. So what the focus of Muda is it's about trimming unnecessary shit. So when you have too many erasers, you have to then you have to put them somewhere until the guys like that are making the metal bands or the guys making the graphite can catch up. So when you have too many rubber bands or too many rubber erasers, you got to stack them up somewhere and you got to keep track of them. And then you got to go make some more because like that's your whole goal is to just make a shit ton of everything, right? And you keep piling up on inventory and you keep having all these problems because now you have to have people count them. You have to have people move them. You have to have people store them. You have to go buy a warehouse facility. You have to do all these things that are unnecessary when you could just be making 6 erasers, 6 pencils, 6 metal band things, and 6 of the graphite insert tip thing, whatever's right. So the whole point of the Japanese concept of Muda is we got to get rid of the Muda. And like there's a ton of waste and there's a ton of obfuscation and there's a ton of like things that are slowing up the process. And so we aim to get rid of those things and have everybody focus on any problem as soon as it arises. So that's the concept of Muda. Zenith, what are your thoughts, bro?
I think that this is an interesting concept that it might seem when it's presented to you, it seems kind of obvious. But if you just start from scratch and imagine how you're going to build a thing, how do you build that pencil? How do you run the pencil building company? You might start be like, okay, cool. Well, I need to go get a bunch of materials. I need to have a place to store the materials. I need to have machines and the people to run the machines. And then after that, I got to go build out the sales team and marketing. Then we got to get sales and then we can sell pencils that we make. But what Toyota does very differently is they shifted from a pull system to a push system. Farmer, do you want to elaborate on this one because you're a construction guy? Pull versus push. Oh no. Oh, okay. This is something I saw in some of the shipyards I worked with. It's the idea of kind of like the old style of thinking is that if you are a manufacturer or a builder, you want to have just like a storehouse full of stuff to make things out of. You want to have all the aluminum ready to go. You want to have your wires and that kind of stuff. But what Toyota discovered is that instead they created this thing called the just-in-time system, or JIT, which is that for them to be the most efficient they possibly can, everything is done precisely when it needs to be done. It is not prepped earlier. It is not prepped later. It is prepped precisely on time. So that way there is zero wasted time, zero wasted effort for anything, even just like a part sitting on a shelf. It's the difference between pulling parts is you go pull parts off the shelf versus push is that we push things to the manufacturing floor exactly when they need them. So like they're building the car, they got the chassis and they're like, all right, cool, it's time to go put in the engine. They turn around, someone hands them the engine. They say, here you go, man. It's right there when you need it, not before, not after. What that does is it really trims down on things that were conventionally necessary and allows them to kind of change their way of thinking and think about, okay, how do I make sure that there's zero time wasted, there's zero effort wasted, and I'm not spending money storing stuff, and I'm not spending money paying people to double count inventory 2 times a month just to make sure that things are there. There's obviously a lot of challenges that go with this, and there's also a lot of limitations that go with it too, which is that as individuals, we can't really do this. Even as small businesses can't really do this. Even as medium-sized businesses, you can't do this because there's other factors that are part of the system, which is that in order to do the just-in-time system, you have to be able to anticipate demand and have to anticipate your sales. So if you have a very uneven sales cycle, this is going to be very difficult to do, or you're going to run into issues where it's people on the other end of the house are dealing with the muda, which is that I'm going to create 20 Toyota Camrys every month. Some months, people really buy Toyota Camrys. Other months, people don't. So what you're going to see is that on the lot, on the other end of the production line, there's going to be times when the salesman's like, dude, I got 0 Camrys. I can't sell you one even if I wanted to. And then there's going to be other times where it's like, all right, we're building up the inventory of Camrys, but no one's buying them. And then it's that fluctuation. That's one of the other principles they talk about here is that it's not just the production side of the house, but it's the sales side of the house too, which is that if you can even out your distribution and even out your demand, which sounds crazy for modern economic stuff, but that's how you're able to operate this process, which is very efficient, very stable, and very predictable.
So there's actually, go ahead.
Just gonna say, I think that system kind of only works like when you're manufacturing things that are you're just gonna keep making more of them. But like you were talking about in my case, like no, if I need something, like I don't know what I'm gonna need, so it's kind of hard to determine when you're building custom things what you're gonna need and what material you're gonna need to make whatever you're gonna do.
But you know what? I know that you know that this is a pain in the ass. Long lead time items. When you're trying to close out a job and your part's pending, and you're like, I ordered this stuff 3 weeks ago.
You just need like 9 fuses that are gonna take like 4 weeks to get there.
Yep.
Correct. That's the muda. It's I need this thing now, but I can't have it now because I have to wait on it, which means that all that time, wasted time, baby. It's time you could have been doing other stuff.
One of the things that I was thinking about with this is the application to like the cryptocurrency spaces. And this is like some of the stuff that crypto does a really good job of is trimming out the muda. Like we moved away from like pretty much almost all the cryptocurrency has moved away from proof of work, right? Like we've made faster chains, slower, like we're getting rid of slow transaction times and high fees and stuff. And I actually asked ChatGPT to talk to to speak about the concept of removing muda from the cryptocurrency sphere, and it's done a pretty cool job. It's listed off like 10 things, but it's just like it's just fascinating, like some of the stuff that it came up with, like enhancing user experience by like we make better interfaces. All like the original interface for blockchain for Bitcoin back in 2010 2009, you had like to come up to build a wallet, you had to come up with like a 64-digit string, and then like you created your own private keys before the 28 or the 2048 like seed phrase words came out. Like just the concept of muda in cryptocurrency, and like, or not muda itself, but like removing all the waste in the cryptosphere is like fucking crazy cool. So that was something that I wanted to dwell on quickly, and we can talk about it more. We can move right on, but that was a nifty thing I was thinking about.
True.
I was correct me if I'm wrong here, but this made me think about something that I see a lot in the community that I am in, frequently.
Yeah.
a lot of times these brick and mortar stores, or even the online stores, with collectible communities, they'll get these things, these cards or whatever they are, the general collectible items, I guess, and then they shove them on a shelf, and then they overprice them, and then they just leave them there. They want the higher price, and they have determined in their own brain that it is worth that, despite being higher than the market, and despite the fact that nobody's buying it because they can find it cheaper.
Yep.
And then they just leave that thing to sit and sit and sit, and sometimes it sits for years, and they just continue to insist on it's worth more than you guys are saying it's worth. I think this concept kind of applies there, because one thing that I've heard, or I guess learned, or not really sure how to word that, but the shelf space that these items take up, if you keep doing this process, if you have so many of them, costs you money, because you have to rent that space. You're paying to have that space in your presence.
Yep.
And now you just have this thing constantly sitting in it, so these things are never moving. And I think that's kind of what this is talking about. It's counterintuitive to do that, because you're costing more money over time than you're going to ultimately make, because you're keeping that thing around when you could have sold it for a profit from the get-go. It just would have been less than you think it's worth. Am I hitting on something there?
No, you're absolutely right. Go ahead, Z.
I can speak on my nerd street cred on this one, which is that specifically for like the game store community stuff you're talking about, it's collectible items, or it might not be items that are in immediate constant demand all the time, but at the same time there is a market, and theoretically if you priced it at a certain price it would sell almost immediately. So I think the game store model operates on this weird kind of like hybrid between being a cash flow business and then also being somewhat of like speculative investors, which is that theoretically some of these things do appreciate in value over time. So there is potential profit in holding on to it. But the question is, now you have to work that through your numbers and determine how many of these boxes do I need to hold for so long and sell for a certain price in the future to cover my rent that I'm going to pay along the way that whole time. As opposed to the inverse of that business model would be a store that cares less about collectibles and cares more about just constant sales churning in. So that whenever they hit up their distributor, they know like, okay, cool, I'm going to be putting on like 3 events this week. And then outside of that, it might have a little bit of demand. I'm going to order just enough product to satisfy all that demand. And I want it to come in the day before I start doing the events. So that way it's not sitting on shelves. It is immediately distributed and the cash flow goes back in, and I can plan for the next events that I'm going to order just in time for those events as well.
Yep.
So
there's also like opportunity cost,
True,
that's another
exactly.
thing to factor in.
If you are the speculative side as well, exactly what you're saying, which is that just because the numbers work out for you, because you parked your capital in this investment, it means that that capital is in that investment and not doing any of the other opportunities you could possibly have, like doing constant churn for events or something. It is, you've parked this here, it is locked up, you have locked those tokens in the staking contract, you can't get them out until the half-year stake period, otherwise you lose it all. It's that kind of thing.
I like it. Farber, do you have any thoughts?
No, I think I already spoke on it, right? Did I? Maybe.
Those damn fuses.
You did? Yeah. Oh yeah, it was the fuses. That's right.
The farmer, you'll get a kick out of this story, but I'm currently parts pending on one of my projects, and it's for a fire alarm system. And the issue is that it's in this room that has a shower in it, therefore it has to be watertight or weatherproof. But the issue is that the weatherproof boxes to mount the devices on are on back order. But the devices do have a gasket, and we have other back boxes, but they're the wrong color. So I'm not saying that the charge card has a small charge at the local Home Depot. That's the same price as red spray paint. But the job might be getting done sooner than expected.
Hey, red spray paint works all the time, though. We always use them on the job site. We usually just, like, if they were out of red pipe, send the apprentice to spray that pipe red.
Attaboy.
Let's roll right in from there to talk about Genchi Genbutsu, which means go and see for yourself. So like the practice of going to the actual place to observe and understand the situation firsthand, right? So in the book, this principle is used to make informed decisions based on direct observation rather than like assumptions and reports. So like how it relates to Zenith, is like the people up at the top, they don't know that you have this like super small problem that you can solve super easy with like just a little bit of fudging, or that Farmer J can like
Creativity, shall we call it?
Sure, yeah. But or the like Farmer J's people can send those guys like right on over and just say, oh, spray paint the pipe. There we go. Problem solved. Right. This is like this is a big issue in the West. And this is something that like I salute the Toyota people for just constantly adapting and like constantly making their whole process better. Like it sounds so romantic to me, the notion of like, hey, we're constantly updating our process, we're constantly doing better, we're doing a new thing, we're constantly fighting challenges, and we pause the whole fucking thing whenever one problem goes wrong. Can you imagine, Zenith, at the place you work, if they paused everything because they wouldn't allow you to, like, if they didn't allow you to like back order the thing? Like if everyone had the opportunity to pause the floor, to pause the production because like there's a problem, it's like a lot of problems would be solved very fast, and they would give you a lot more authority to solve problems like on your own without having to pause the entire production of the entire facility to fix this fucking gasket in the spray paint in the whatever the hell. So
there's a second half to the point you're making here, which is this is also one of the Toyota way points, which is that problems are solved immediately. People stop what they're doing, solve the problem, and what this does is it ensures quality by guaranteeing that no defective material gets put down the line. The way that you can solve that and immediately solve problems is if you have the ability and the authority to solve the problem on the spot in a timely manner.
Yep.
Otherwise, your stopping to solve this problem is going to halt production to a degree that you're actually losing a lot more money by not producing and instead waiting on trying to fix this one thing because you either don't have the funds, you have to go get a sign off on it, or God forbid, you have to get multiple sign offs and route the correct form to a certain person. And then they have a certain amount of time to go get a subcontractor quote. And then they have to bid, and then you have to do 3 shopped proposals. And now we're 3 months later.
Yeah, I think it's that mindset of, oh, well, it was designed like this, so it just has to happen like this. It has to. And like, no, if you actually stop and think about it, you can actually find a solution to the problem, and you could do it another way. But now I think most people have this mindset of, if the instructions say this, this, and this, no, like you don't have to do it like that. You can just pause for a second, think about it. Okay, if I can't do this in this proper steps, is there anything else I can do at the moment to get around that issue for now, instead of halting production? Am I just going to sit there and wait for this? No, what else can I do? But I think a lot of people just have that mindset of we're just going to wait, and we're going to do it according to this piece of paper that, like, I'm not allowed to think. Just take the piece of paper and just go through it step by step, and if it doesn't work out, then I'm just going to stand there looking like a dumbass instead of actually trying to problem solve it and figure something else out.
I mean, we don't want to straw man this one a little too much, but there are pros and cons to each of the systems. So
there is.
If you give people that standard operating procedure or the piece of paper with instructions that says literally do this, and they even gives you the points to breathe in and breathe out and think about your family, it's like what you're doing is you're standardizing that process. So if the people follow it correctly, which that's, again, percentage chance, but if it's followed correctly, assuming that it is, you are going to get 100% consistent results every time.
No, not if there's an issue that comes up. Like that's what I mean.
Not if there's an issue that comes up. Yeah.
That's one of the things I talk about.
Where people have gone away from actually trying to problem solve and just, like you said, it's standardized instructions. Just follow this to the T. And
well, that's what they talk about in the book. If the instructions are bad, then you change the instructions.
Correct.
So like if you're sitting there like trying to do the instructions and it's not working, then it's basically like, oh, halt production, we have bad instructions, we need to fix this, or something.
That's a very good mindset to have.
Yeah. And what I really like about the Toyota way is it creates a bunch of competent individuals as opposed to a whole bunch of drones. And the competent individuals, then they go and find like well-written instructions that they can follow very easily that allows them to produce a quality product. So like if you're a competent individual and you're following bad instructions, you might create a bad product. Or you might be able to notice that it's bad instructions and be like, hey, everybody, this shit sucks. We need to fix it. Bam, halt production, apply that pressure. And then like the company changes for the better because now you've got competent people that are reading instructions. And like, the people that are idiots, they'll weed themselves out because like Zenith was saying further, they just don't give those guys any assignments, and they just kind of sit off in the corner, and they're like, oh, I'm collecting a paycheck and being shameful and whatnot, and that works in that culture. But like,
I could live in that kind of shame the rest of my life if somebody wants to give me a paycheck to just
yeah,
sit
and
here and do nothing.
that's
can
why
live in shame.
Americans work a little bit differently than like the Japanese do, man. They are a different culture. I will say that. I don't know if it's for me or if it's not for me, but that's a whole different world over there with all that shame based stuff, as opposed to like the Ponzi based or the growth based or whatever you want to call it, stuff that we were discussing earlier.
That's true. Will, you do have a good point, though, and it's another one of the things that's brought up in the Toyota way, which is that they talk about the training regiments that are very non-regimented, which is that instead of trying to create a standardized learning program of like try to get people up to speed quickly, they just go throw people into uncomfortable environments and kind of just let them problem solve on their own.
Yep.
But it is not time efficient on its own, which is that you're not going to teach people a proper, effective solution to the problem that is presented in the quickest amount of time possible. What you're going to do is you're going to create that mental flexibility, and you're going to create people that have the skills and the mental capacity of the gray matter between their ears to actually problem solve and understand that they were given this problem to problem solve, not just memorize a solution and just become a pure operator and just do the thing the same every time. So again, it's the same thing, which is like you're building better people by trying to improve the process, and it starts with allowing people to improve themselves.
Yeah, just give him a shovel and tell him go dig a hole. Eventually, he'll figure out the most effective way to use that shovel. Instead of you trying to just give him the shovel, go dig a hole.
Hitting the ground with the stick part. That's one of the. I'm give my boss here a quick shout out. Shout out to Mike Lee. If any of you guys ever end up working for Ultimate Tower Services, my boss is fucking kick ass. He basically, like, whenever me and my coworker are up in the air and we have to solve some sort of rigging problem, we have to figure out how to pick up something incredibly heavy, like, we know the different ratings of the parts of our rigging system, like this block is good for this cable is good for that weight. We've got these many angles that we can anchor off to. We have to come up with like a whole bunch of different like picking plans and like ways that we're going to pick up this 2,000-pound antenna with just two guys in a winch that's located like 1,500 feet down below us, right? So like, it's super awesome to be able to work with a crew or to work with a boss who lets you like problem solve on your own. And if you have like he purposefully throws us in these scenarios sometimes, which kind of sucks, but like we get to we work around it a lot. So like, big shout out to my boss out there, and I'm super thankful to be working where I'm at. And like, I highly encourage everybody to try and find people that that will give you the chance to fail and the chance to succeed and the chance to, like, you know, make your own decisions and do things. Because like, if I were to be hired at one of these Toyota companies, like, I think that would be super awesome, just to be able to be given that level of like trust and competence and authority. And then like, whenever I fuck up, I'm gonna be held accountable to it, and like, I'm gonna have to do the whole Hanwei thing where it's like, oh, you feel sad because you made the mistake. Or what. I think it's Hanwei. I can't remember what the word is for it, but they had
it's just funny what we use.
Hanzei, yeah. Where reflection, self-reflection, identify areas for improvement. Okay, so yeah, so ChatGPT's definition of Hanzei is a lot different than mine. The practice of self-reflection to identify areas for improvement and learning from mistakes. The way they described it in the book is like, you have to go do Hanzei now, where you have to feel sad because you did a bad thing.
Go sit in the corner and feel sad.
Basically, like, if you've skipped the feel sad part, then you have to go and like experience that, so that way you can truly like drive home the lesson of like, don't do this thing again. That's another thing. Like, if you work for a company that's too forgiving and you keep making mistakes and they keep forgiving you for it, and they don't fire you, or they don't tell you like, hey, feel bad about this, you knucklehead, right? If there's nothing to drive home the lesson of like, you did a wrong thing, then you're not going to get different behavior out of someone. So this is like, it's just as important to hold people accountable for like both their good decisions and their bad decisions, as it is to give them the freedom to sink or swim, and to solve problems and to do other things.
Yeah, that's like completely opposite from what we have here. Usually you fuck up and you're gone.
Yeah, exactly. It's like one slip and you're it. So it's
usually,
way less.
I mean, like you said, there are certain bosses that, you know, will give you that play and actually want good employees. So yeah, I worked for companies that are like that, where they give you leeway, and they usually have a better employee set than just people that are always worried about losing their job constantly. It's like, you don't have a go culture there. But when you understand that if you make mistakes, they'll give you a chance to correct it, I think that improves morale better.
I totally agree. I would love to work for a place like that does that sort of thing, as opposed to the guys that just like, oh yeah, you're fired. You made one mistake, you're fired. It's like because then you're walking around everywhere on eggshells, right? And you can't take risks, and you can't learn new things, and there's no development, and it's like you're always living like having to almost like look over your shoulder, or like just be too timid and scared, and like not taking bold risky moves. I like taking bold, risky moves. If you guys haven't figured that out, Zenith, have you got any thoughts? And then I'll toss it over to Mrs. McGettit once you're done. See if she's got anything.
I got something that might be a good closeout for the topics. But yeah, go pass it over.
Mrs. McGettit, do you have any thoughts on the stuff that we're talking about? I see that you just got back from the private chats and things. Is anything that were you able to catch any of our discussion?
Yeah, a little bit, but just did you have a specific question in mind, or?
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you have? So we were talking about the Genshi Genbutsu, the go see it yourself. So like going down and interacting on like the base level, and like going and seeing where the stuff is happening, like when you're a leader or something like that. So we were.
Yeah, I remember. Okay, I remember now.
Yeah.
That just makes me think of that show where they had like the CEOs pretend to be like a regular employee and go meet like the bottom tier employees.
Yeah.
Undercover boss.
Yes, that's what it was called. And I always think that's a great idea. That goes back to that whole, what we were talking about earlier, where all the different departments of like the company have no idea what the other ones do. I think it's a very good way to kind of resolve that type of issue, personally. So.
Correct. More awareness is always better. And that's where you get the whole diversity of thought. That's where you get it from.
Yep.
All right. I did want to finish off with this a little bit. So I know this is a personal thought that I have during some of the shows, which is that on rewatch, I imagine that it might be a little bit obvious, like the things that we talk about, just restating the obvious. But I mean, we're just talking about things that people have put into very precise words that we've probably all felt or thought about before. So It's just being very specific about what's going on here. But one way that we can connect this to things that people might be experiencing in the real world right now is that the main outgrowth of the Toyota way, and what Simon Sinek was referring to in the video as what you might see in modern corporate world today, is you're either going to see Six Sigma or Lean Six Sigma, or just Lean as it's called. They're very similar processes, but they focus on different outcomes. So if you implement either one of these processes, you're going to see improvements in one of two areas. You're either going to see the processes themselves get better, or you're going to see the thing that is produced by a process is better, and you're going to get less defects, and it's going to have a tighter tolerance of outcomes. Meaning that if we have a company that produces 6-foot boards, and then we're having an issue where it's like sometimes the boards come out at 6 feet 2 inches, sometimes they're 5 feet 9 inches, but we want to try to get it down to 6 feet every time. You can use a process like Six Sigma to reduce that variance, so that now the only boards that come out of your factory are like 6.1 inches or like 511.9 inches, stuff like that. So I got something here for you though. So Lean focuses on removing waste from a process based on customer value of the process. That's what they talk about in the book. When it comes to the idea of using Muda, the second half of the definition, which is the idea of trying to remove anything that does not add value to the customer. Six Sigma is kind of the other half of the definition, which is removing waste, which is trying to remove things that can cause defects, things that are erroneous, things of that nature. So what they try to do is standardize processes so that everything is more standardized every time, and that it's a lot more reliable. So Six Sigma is specifically referring to the normal distribution curve, which is that you want all of your stuff to fall into the normal distribution up to 3 standard deviations on either side. So 3 standard deviations out based on what you produce is going to be good stuff, which means that if you achieve Six Sigma quality, it means that you're going to have 3.4 defects for every 1 million parts you produce, which is that out of every 1 million times you step up to bat, so to speak, you're going to miss 3 times out of 1 million. That's how you reduce the process to create better results. Or you can use Lean, or the idea of Muda, which is that reducing waste, which is things that don't add value. That's how you can have better processes that allow you to have more profit motive as opposed to the physical product itself being better. So those are the 2 outcomes of the Toyota method that people might interact with in actual corporate life.
Yep. I remember hearing about Lean Six Sigma as I was leaving the Marine Corps back in 2019. That was one of the buzzword topic item things that was going on in all of my like what is it, re-education process, when they're like, all right, time to stop thinking Marine Corps, time to start thinking civilian. Yeah, reintegration, right? Like I've been a prisoner of war for the last 8 years, and so time to put you back with a normal folk, and you don't want to scare them too much or something. But yeah, that was one of the features they were talking about a lot, is to like if I ended up going for some corporate or whatever the heck, that it would be beneficial to learn Lean Six Sigma. And I thought it was all one thing. I didn't know it was two separate little entities and courses and things there.
They use a lot of the same principles because it came from the same school of thought, which is the Toyota way.
Yep.
But it's the thing that you're trying to focus is different. And one of the big things in there is it's the idea of what you measure is what you care about. So if you measure about adding value, you're going to measure the things that add value. If you care about your product being better itself, you're going to measure the ways that you produce the product so that you have a more consistent result on the end of it.
Focusing on the different places to get the goals accomplished. I like it. That's a good, nice little blurb for us to end on. I actually kind of want to end on a question. So here's the thing that I want you guys to think about, and you can answer this shortly, or you can reflect on it for a long period of time. But ChatGPT gave me a really good question regarding applying some of the other principles of the book to cryptocurrency, like specifically in the realm of community building. Actually, no, I asked it to tell me about community building, not cryptocurrency. So the principle of Kaizen, which is continuous improvement. This is the question. How can the principle of Kaizen be applied to foster a stronger, more supportive community? What small, consistent actions can individuals and communities as a whole take to improve the well-being of said community? So that's my trailing question for both you guys here on the panel, for the folks in the Degen Roundtable chats, is like, this is something to think about. Like, what are the small actions that we can take as individuals that we can keep track of as a team that will lead us to being a better community as a whole, and like a better crypto community space? I think that the Degen Roundtable community, we're blessed to have a whole bunch of super bright and enthusiastic people that are always looking to improve. So we've got folks that are already Kaizen minded in a sense. There's a lot of folks in there that are trying to like level up their game and trying to work on stuff and trying to, just get better in every respect. My quick and easy answer to this question is, I think that it's important to be consistent. I think that it's important to be communicative. So like adding value as opposed to like extracting value. If you're chilling out in a place and all you're doing is reading and pulling and reading and pulling, like that's perfectly fine. You take the information you need to level up as necessary. But if you really want to give back to a community and help the community grow and help everybody alongside you level up with you, then a thing to do is to interact with everybody in such a manner that it's like it's making everyone level up around you, and we can all go and like rocket off to the moon, because we're all going out there and we're all doing work in our own little way, and we're all sharing the results of our work, and we're sharing the benefits and everything of that nature. So that's my final little question, and then we'll go ahead and go around the panel. If you guys got any thoughts about what are some things that we can do as individuals, because we can't do things as a team. All that we can do is control our very own unique personal actions. We can monitor results as a team, but we can't, like, I can't say, hey, Degen Roundtable Book Club team, like, do this. It's like, no, I can't force you guys to do anything. All that I can do is choose to do this, that, or the other thing based off the goals that we have. So Zenith, I'll toss it off to you first. Go ahead and say your piece if you'd like about the question, or just reflect on it. But the goal here is, we need to know what you're doing in the near future. Where can the folks find you? What do you think about this book on the 0 to 10,000 hours, on the 0 to 10,000 hours rating? Ready, set, go.
Yeah. So for the Kaizen thing, I think about I almost want to think about cryptocurrency, especially the thing that we all purport to want to do the most, which is onboarding. If you want to onboard, I think the concept of Muda is very important on this one, which is that through your process of onboarding, you want to reduce all the things that offer no value to the people you're trying to onboard.
Yes.
Which means that through the actions that you're taking on a daily basis, this is also highly relevant to anyone running a political campaign, by the way, which is kind of topical, which is that if you're trying to attract people into your cryptocurrency space or you're trying to attract voters, do you think that you shitposting online and starting a fight and doing outrage marketing is going to attract more people? Is that going to offer value to those people? Or are there other things that you can do that are actually offering value? And this thing that you are doing and you get some sort of kick out of or some sort of enjoyment is actually offering no value to other people. I'm not saying that you can't ever have fun, but I'm saying that if the goal that you purport is to onboard and encourage people to come into the space, are the actions you are taking actively doing so? Or are they kind of just faffing about? Or are they actively discouraging people from doing so? I think when it comes to community building, it's a very important thing, because if I'm not saying that you have to like speech police or anything, but just understand that if you're acting like a crazy person, people don't want to be around the crazy person. Yep. If you're acting like a fun person, yeah, sure, people want to be around fun, but understand people where the line is.
People like mushrooms. People like fun guys.
There you go.
Excellent. I like it, Zenith. Where can the folks find you? What do you think about the book, and what have you got going on in the near future?
Catch me Instagram and Twitter, Zenith DI. Catch me on the FN Hangout after this. I will be hosting along with anyone else that wants to come hang out.
Oh, I'll be
Other than that, we have Sunday show. We got a lot going on this week, actually. Like, this is a big macroeconomic week and also a big pulse chain week. So probably going to talk about that a little bit on the Hangout. Definitely going to talk about it on Sunday. Other than that, stay tuned for Sunday because we have a special guest announcement for Wednesday. We're going to be announcing who we're having on. It's going to be a great guest, and we're looking to put together a very good show offering a lot of value. No waste.
Excellent. I love to hear it. Mr. Farmer J, what do you think about final question? How can folks improve their actions to make for a better community? Where can the folks find you? What you got going on in the near future? And what do you think about the book?
All right. Well, all I would say on that point is mainly trial and error. You got to actually see what works and eliminate what doesn't work. And when you find something that works, you can see what you can do to improve on that. Not because you found something that was a better method. That doesn't mean that it's the end all be all. You can always try to improve all that bad. But to me, it seems more like trial and error. Just keep trying to see what works, what's not going to work. And if it's not going to work, make notes of it and eliminate, don't try to do that anymore if it's not beneficial at all. You can find me right there at.
Oh my God, I love it.
At the Degen Roundtable. And don't got much going on. Just wrapping up a job next week, and I'll see where I head.
Spray painting pipes.
Yeah, somebody's got to do it.
Somebody's got to.
I'll supervise the apprentice spray painting the pipes. Somebody's got to supervise.
What do you think about the book, Farmer J? Where would you recommend it, or would you recommend it to people on the intro level of experience, the beginning level, the medium level, like someone in 100 hours, 5,000 hours? What do you think?
I would say it's an interesting book. It depends on what you're trying to read at the time. But if it's specific to if you're looking for something that improves productivity, things of that nature, I'd say it's a good read.
Excellent. All righty. Excellent. All right, Mrs. Producer, it is your turn. Where can the folks find you? What do you think about what folks could do to improve their community by their personal actions, and what's new and exciting, or what's coming up in the near future?
Okay, gotcha. Sorry, 1 second. I had to clear my throat.
You good?
For where you can find me, I'm going to go ahead and ask Farmer to kindly hold up that arrow again, because that's same situation for me. Join our Telegram, people. If you're not already in there, I don't even know what you're doing with your life. Sorry, not too rude, but get in there. As for the scale on where to find the book, or where I would put the book, I don't feel like I have a lot of say in that, since I did not read it. I just watched a bunch of info on it.
Well, but the info being relevant, right? So you don't necessarily have to
I got you. Don't worry, I'm getting there.
Okay. All right. Excellent.
I definitely think that the concepts, so therefore kind of, what I do understand, what I did get to absorb for the content on this, it's great. It's great ideas. It really emphasizes kind of the idea of prioritizing more of your people versus your numbers, which I think is very important. I mean, I think it would be a great thing to look into for anybody who is interested in kind of like team building and trying to figure out how to build more of a long-term success rather than like that instant gratification thing, which unfortunately may not be a lot of people, especially in America nowadays. But, you know, if you do have that mindset, it's very much worth looking into, giving it a read. As for the question on the community thing, I don't know if I necessarily have anything for the Degen Roundtable community specifically. I think we're doing a pretty good job there. Maybe one thing would be like seeking feedback from people to how they think things could be improved and what kind of moves you could make, you know, finding out what the people value, kind of that way. And then I would just say always, I guess this is always like an important thing to me, communication. The more communication you can have with people, the better off you're going to be. The more you're able to understand other people, the better off you're going to be. Just like we've been talking about with these CEOs in the company versus the janitor, like that type of a situation. So yeah, I think that's about all I've got. You guys already, Zenith, are we going to switch Ender's Game for next week's book club still, or what are we thinking on that one?
Yes, we are. We're switching.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so a little bit of context here. I wanted to host Ender's Game, and Zenith didn't know that. So he's going to give me the chance to host it, and I'm going to figure out like when exactly I'm going to do that. I don't know when that'll fall. I'll have to interrupt one of you two in order to do it, obviously. So we'll coordinate that. But eventually we are going to do Ender's Game. I am also going to do a second one for Ender Shadow. So I'm hoping to do those pretty rapid succession with one another whenever I do get around to it. They are very long, Zenith told me. I wanted to do them together, but put together, that's like almost 30 hours worth of audiobooks, and I don't want to make people deal with that. Plus, I think these streams would do a little bit better separately based on all of the content that's going to be in that. So I would like to do both of those at some point. But yeah, we're not doing Ender's Games next week. Zenith will let us know what he's going to choose for next week.
Can I put pressure on you right now, Zenith?
You absolutely can, but remember, that's how we ended up with The Power of Now.
That's a fucking good book. I like it. Oh, there goes
my webcam. It was not what I thought it was. It was not what
I enjoyed it. I like that book a lot. I've got a schedule in the Telegram, and I'm going to go ahead and update it for August 30th being book 35, Unknown. But after that is going to be Building a Second Brain, and then after that is going to be Warrior's Ethos. You can do either one of those if you would like. I will gladly.
Did we ever do $100 million leads?
No, we only did the offers. I think that would be
the second Hormozy book.
Yeah, I know we've only done $100 million off. We've only done the $100 million offers, so I think that would be a great idea.
All right, let's do it. $100 million leads.
Done. Sweet. I am editing August 30th. $100 million leads. Boom, baby. Excellent. Look at that. And it is posted. We almost have a month out schedule. Almost.
Love to see
if you think of something for September 13th, Zenith, just so you know, I will be at a wedding on that day, so I will not be able to attend that. But that's a month away. More details for later.
We actually need to talk about Labor Day weekend.
Oh, offline. Is that what that day is? Okay. All right.
Next weekend is Labor Day weekend.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool beans. I will add that to my things that I will probably forget, and I will just presume that you're going to do it. So there we go. For the folks at home, if you guys didn't know, you guys can follow me at will.pls.fyi. That's where all of my socials are linked. I will go ahead and drop that in the chats below. Will.pls.fyi is where you can find my Facebook, my YouTube, my Twitter, my Instagram, my Telegram, bunch of things. You can find my link tree in there. Lots of good stuff in there. I don't have an OnlyFans yet, but we shall see. No promises either here nor there. But yeah, let me make sure that I covered everything. I believe we're good. All right. Time to go ahead and launch into my show-ending copywriting. All right. I want to thank you all for spending your valuable time with us here on the Degen Roundtable. As Agent J says, we know that time is your most valuable asset, and we appreciate you investing that precious time side by side here with us. And to think that we are only just getting started, Mrs. Producer, go ahead and get that trigger finger ready. I want to remind all the folks at home to Degen responsibly.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Pulse Chain Tour Masters Golf Tournament 2024. Zenith is making his approach to the green on this sudden death playoff between himself and Reginald Gerald III, who already completed his putt for birdie. Zenith needs to make this putt right here in order for his dreams of winning that jacket to stay alive. Let's see what he does. Oh, he flubbed it. He missed. He whiffed. He's a loser. I repeat, RG3 wins. Don't make mistakes like that guy. Get ready early for Pulse Chain Tour Las Vegas 2025, including the Pulse Masters Golf Tournament from March 6th through the 9th. Sign up early and use the code DGEN at checkout before September 1st. You get 36.9% off all of your tickets. Don't miss out on all the fun from the star-studded conferences, golf tournament, and nightly events in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada with all of your friends and favorite Pulse and Hex creators. We cannot wait to see you in Vegas, so until then, DGen responsibly.